My first exposure to pornography is pretty early in life, around age 11, and
Mm.
it's not until you try to stop, that you realize, oh crap, like that's not as that's not as easy as I thought it was gonna. Like, yeah, I thought, I'll just be done with this stuff and I'll be able to commit, but it just tainted everything. So I reached.
Silence, because many people today they're actually addicted to porn. They don't say that to anybody because like something like people are very, very ashamed to be with. Sometimes you start in a young age, you grow as adult. Some people think like it's just like for single people, but even when you're a married kid, you can still be addicted to pornography as well. But now kids have it everywhere, like on the phone, on the iPad. Like I feel like in like 20, 30 years, we're gonna have a lot of kids addiction to pornography, but it's gonna
Yeah.
be higher than, when we were younger. So welcome to Better Self Podcast. Today I actually have a special guest here. Today we're gonna talk about pornography. Um, it's a subject like a lot of people actually struggle with. Many people don't like talking about it. It's a very taboo, but there's a lot of people fighting against it in silence because many people today they're actually addicted to porn. They don't say that to anybody because like something like people are very, very ashamed to be with. Sometimes you start in a young age, you grow as adult. Some people think like it's just like for single people, but even when you're a married kid, you can still be addicted to pornography as well. So I have a surprise guest today. I'm gonna let him introduce himself, but just so you guys know, he's actually a specialist when it comes to psychology and also pornography as well. So just introduce yourself so let people know who you are.
Sure. Thanks so much, Phone Chris. My name is Bryan Petkau. I am a therapist and coach, and I'm a pornography recovery specialist with renewedhopecoaching.com. I run a program my program specifically for Christian men who are married or in committed relationships. But I work with a lot of different people on this topic. I've been on this mission for about 14 years, and yeah, happy to share some of my story. If you want me to do that at some point, but Cole's notes, that's
Yeah, I
me, and
think
that's what I do.
yeah, I think I like the fact you say you actually focus on Christian because I feel like us, I'm a Christian too. I think us
Okay.
as Christian, pornography is something like it's not just like a normal addiction. It's something where it's involved a lot of spirit as well. That's the reason why sometimes as a Christian you have to fight against it because it's not just the physical, the addiction part, but it's actually deeper than that. So what actually make you start this journey of helping people?
Yeah, sure. So if it's okay, I'll tell you a little bit about me and kind of what starts. Sure. My similar to a lot of the guys that I work with and a lot of the men out there, my first exposure to pornography is pretty early in life, around age 11, and
Mm.
I'm 46 years old now, so we're going way back in the day where it was magazines and those kinds of things, and I won't say things that are triggering, hopefully to your audience, but
No, no, no,
um,
you can't. This is like just like people just express yourself the way you want to say. I
okay,
don't mind how
cool,
you're gonna say it, as long as the
yeah,
message. There's no filter here.
okay, thanks,
Yes.
good, yeah. So it was at the time it was magazines, age 11, access to it at various kind of family members' houses. I remember uncles, for instance, having
Yeah.
magazines, in the bathroom underneath the cupboard. So a young boy going, into the washroom and then locking the door and having access to that kind of stuff. When I'm
Yeah.
young, I struggled for about 20 years. From age 11 to about age 30, and it escalated from magazines, and then around 1994 high speed internet really becomes widely available, and it kind of blows it wide open for not only me but for everybody else. In between there's VHS and DVDs and all this kinds of stuff, but once once high speed internet comes on the scene, it's kind of it's the same story with a lot of guys. It's kind of game over now. There's access in about kind of 3 clicks, and anytime you want. So
Yeah.
I found myself early, I'm in my 20s, early 20s, and my background, at this point, I'm working, I'm actually making pretty good money, and I'm living with some friends in this house that we're renting. And I didn't grow up Christian at all. Like, just a little bit about my faith journey. Like, we
Yeah.
didn't, there was no church. There was no really, I think we had a Bible in the house, but it was more for decoration, kind of on the wall kind of thing. And
Mm.
so, I'm in my 20s and I'm making good money living with friends. And we kind of, we're renting this house, and it's kind of this party house where there's lots of drinking and things going on. And there's, big stereo, pool table, all this stuff. And just kind of living not a great life, let's say, in retrospect. So of course, there's acting out with pornography and other sexual things going on, and there's this girl that I really want to be with and like really want to commit to. So like I like her a lot, and I want, okay, this is the one who I kind of want to commit to. And at that point, realizing, I'm so polluted by not only my lifestyle, but all of the pornography now. You're close to 20 years into this kind of thing. I was around 28 at the time when I decided that she's she's the one who I want to settle down with. So realizing, hey, listen, I can't, like, I don't know how, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
fear and a lot of stuff going on. So I decided, okay, listen, I need to reach out, and I need to get some help with this, because it's not until you try to stop, that you realize, oh crap, like that's not as that's not as easy as I thought it was gonna. Like, yeah, I thought, oh, I'll just be done with this stuff and I'll be able to commit, but it just tainted everything. So I reach out and I find somebody who can help me kind of in the journey, somebody who's been through it before and was able to walk with me toward freedom. And also during this time, so now, around 28 years old, I'm starting to taste a bit of this freedom and starting to recover. And I asked this girl to marry me. Praise God, she's my wife today. Her name is Krista. We've been married for 16 years. And I say to her, or ask her to marry me, and she says yes. And I say to her, well, we should probably do it in a church, right? I mean, that's what people do, isn't it? Right? That's kind of the thing. And I've never really been to church before. And she says to me, she says, you know what? I grew up Roman Catholic, and
Mm.
I went to Catholic school and things like that. I said, oh, okay. She says, well, how about that church? I said, sure, whatever, good as church as any. Like, well, it doesn't,
Mm.
didn't. That's just where I was at the time. It didn't matter to me. So go to the church there, and meeting a priest that is just on fire for the Lord. Young guy, he's fresh out of the seminary. He's joking around. He's funny. He's very approachable. And so that was kind of my first taste. And then as I begin to wade into that world of Christianity, really realizing, oh, this is something that's been missing from my life. There's been a hole here, and here it is. Praise God, that He brought me there. Finish my master's. I get some specific training through the American Association for Sex Addiction Therapy on top of this, and I open a private counseling practice and start working with guys for about 5 years. So it's been like, I think, your 15-year journey now, kind of thing. And I'm working with guys, and quickly my practice is full. I mean, you talk about, as you introduced earlier, the need of this. I think the last stats were kind of released in maybe 2021, where one of the largest pornography internet suppliers, let's call it, websites on the web, boasted 52 billion views in 1 year. So
Yeah.
it's a massive problem. Like 52,000 million in 1 year visits to their website. Bonkers. So my practice is full. I have a lineup out the door, and as I'm working with men and helping them, just as I was helped, praise God, and all glory to God in this, start to realize that therapy's good, and like this one-on-one model's okay,
Yeah.
but I think that from everything that I know and everything I've learned, and now thousands of hours with guys, working with hundreds of guys, then I think that there's kind of a better way. So that's where I start to transition from counseling over to kind of coaching, where I can offer some different things, some better support. I'm not stuck under the kind of the therapy umbrella, where
Yeah.
an example of that is like, you go to a therapist, for instance, and you see him for 50 minutes on a Thursday, and it's okay, like, hey Joe, we'll see you again next week, and that's a
Mm.
whole lot of week in between those appointments.
Yeah.
And something that was really like troubling, and the ethics boards don't want you reaching out to people kind of in between sessions. So I would see Joe like the next week and be like, hey, how was your week? He's you know what, the day after I saw you, I ended up in the muck. I ended up, kind of, and I'd been kind of down all week. It's like, dang,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so, just an example of kind of how you're hindered. So develop this coaching program now, based on that 14 years of experience. And, we've been running it for about a year, and guys are doing fantastic.
It is amazing because the thing is, you're actually brave enough to explain everything, and then, but did you, I know like you wanted to change, but what make you really want to change? I know like you went through a lot of things. Is because you was not in control of yourself, or you felt some type of way. Like, I mean, we all, even myself, I used to watch it as well, and then it was really hard for me to kind of get out as well, because the thing is one of those things when you watch, and after that you regret, because it come with a lot of things after. Same people, you're gonna masturbate, you're gonna do a lot of stuff involved,
Yep.
and just gonna feel ashamed of yourself when you become addicted to something. Same people even watch porn when they actually at work.
Yeah.
For you, you feel more like ashamed of yourself, or what make you feel that way? What was the
Yeah.
reason?
It was really was when I want to commit to somebody and I can't. There's a
Hmm.
word that comes up for me when I think of that, and that's freedom. And
Hmm.
I didn't have any freedom. You know what I mean? Like I was trapped, and that made me angry. Like, you know what I mean? This is no good. Like there's this woman that I see myself being with for the rest of my life, and I'm so polluted is the word I'll use,
Hmm.
that I can't do it. That's a really, like, there's not freedom in that, because freedom indicates that I can say my yes is my yes, but I can also say no, and I couldn't say no, to pornography at the time. So that was probably the big thing for me was, hey, this I don't want to live like life chained to this thing. This is garbage. I need to make some changes. Yeah.
Yeah. But one of the battle, I think, what was the kind of thing that you actually used to struggle the most? Because I know like it's like people that get alcohol, when you wanna stop drinking, you start by reducing. Like for you, how
Mm,
was it like?
mm,
What was
mm.
the, I know with God we have power, because God actually gonna, it's one of those things like you really need God to help you to kind of fight against it. Just on your own, it's very hard. And the thing is, when I see kids today with, I grew up in, I remember the first time I actually see a pornography image. It was actually on my auntie bedroom. I went to her room, and then I was trying to look for something. I just see like there was like a magazine under the bed, and I remember I think I was like 12 or something, or even younger, and I was actually shocked. When you are young, that picture stay in your head,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
And I was kind of traumatized. And when I think about it now, I just feel like, wow, this, I was kind of traumatized for things I was seeing. It was so graphic. That was just a magazine. But today, it was hard for me to see because she had to hide it under bed, but because we didn't have access to those things. But now kids have it everywhere, like on the phone, on the iPad. You have it. It's just crazy on TikTok, on Twitter.
Yeah.
Twitter, it's like it doesn't make any sense. Like I
Yeah.
feel like in like 20, 30 years, we're gonna have a lot of kids addiction to pornography, but it's gonna
Yeah.
be higher than, when we
Yeah.
were younger. I believe when you was young, it was the same as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree with that. And the average age of exposure continues to go down. Last I heard was around between 8 and 11, and that's been going down. Like, when I first start 15 years ago or whatever, it's higher than that, but it keeps going lower because kids with more access to the internet at younger ages. Um, now it's like, I think of an 8-year-old, right? Like, my middle daughter's 8, and I can't. And my older daughter's 10, and to think of that is, well, and to your point around, like, use the word traumatized. The young
Mm,
developing brain coming across something like that is quite, like, confusing, because there's this part
mm,
of the brain that goes, ew, that's like, think of an 8-year-old, right? Like, ew, like,
mm,
that's gross.
yeah,
And then at the same time, I'm oddly aroused by this, and how confusing for the brain, right? Like there's this thing that I think is great, yet I feel this pull. What is going on, right? And so that's a big deal in the end, and it kind of, lack of a better term, kind of burns into your memory, and it's like, oh, jeepers, and now there's a problem, you know?
yeah. I was gonna ask you as a parent everything, but I think that we're gonna go to that later.
Sure.
But you just as a man, because I know. And the thing about pornography, people talk about it, but there's a lot of women actually addicted to porn as well. It's not just something like men's actually addicted to porn. You have like a lot of women addicted to porn as well.
Yes,
So during the process, like what was the step that you was actually getting for, kind of free yourself from it?
yeah,
What I just want it to be like simple so people can actually understand it. What the kind of thing that you
yeah,
was doing to
yeah,
kind of like help you to stay away from them, or every time you was feel like you was tempted to watch something, what was you doing? Like just to help like somebody out there who trying to feel like he's fighting
sure,
against it. Because I have
yeah,
like I made this episode. I wrote something that on my Instagram the other day, like I want to talk about porn addiction. And I have a friend actually told me that, oh, you know what? I think you really need to talk about it because I have one of my friend is addicted to porn, but I just wanted to know what people do about it. I'm like,
yeah,
okay, one of
yeah,
your friend, you know. Of
yeah,
course, you're
yeah,
gonna say that. I'm like, I feel like the person, we don't judge people, but
yeah,
it's one of those things like people don't really talk about it. People feel the shame.
yeah,
So, what can you tell me in terms of like the step that you was doing
sure.
for yourself,
Yeah,
your
and
own
and
journey?
you're right. Tons of shame around this, right? Tons of shame. Guys don't talk about this. Hey, George, let's talk about my porn addiction, right? Like it's something, it happens in the shadows, and that's exactly where the devil wants you, right? He wants you separated from
Mm,
everybody else. He wants you in the shadows. He doesn't want you being with other people. He doesn't want you shining light on this. So what I'll say
mm.
is, in answer to your question, you have to do the opposite of that. You know, you have to. So a couple of things that I would say, so firstly, in my journey, I wish I could say it was a straight line. I wish I could say that the light, the clouds open and the light shone down and then, I'm good. That wasn't the case. It wasn't a straight line at all, actually. For me, there were relapses and along the journey. And just eventually, as I kept pursuing this and kept healing, I was finally able to get some traction and break free. And now it's been, I don't know, I think it's been about 14 years, I guess. Um, free from pornography. Praise God, all glory to God. But in the time, so finding somebody that you can share this with, important. So whether that be like a good friend, um, and it looks different, like if you're married versus if you're a single guy. Like if you're a single guy, I would say like yeah, definitely like who's your good buddy, and because more than
What
likely the
do you think
statistic.
do you think if you are single is it harder?
Do I think it's I think it's more difficult because your why isn't as big sometimes. That's been my experience. Because if you're a single guy, you can kind of kick the can down the road a little bit and go, you know,
I
I
don't
guess
have
I'll
a
get after.
wife. I don't have somebody. I'm just trying to
I'm
have
not
fun.
hurting anybody right now. Is the idea and kind of that the devil implants, right? I'm not hurting anybody, and other than myself, and I'll get after it. Maybe sometimes, and that's not everybody. I don't mean to generalize because I work with lots of single guys who do really well and have a big why. But when it comes to somebody who's in a committed relationship, it's like okay, here's my why. Like because like for instance, a lot of guys I work with, my wife has discovered what I'm doing in secret. And in a way, it's a blessing because now I can be free of this secret part of myself. But at the same time, she's really hurt, right? So I never want to do that again. That's such a good motivator. So then when I ask them to do the things I ask them to do, they're perfectly willing. Versus like sometimes single guys. Single guys is a little bit harder to get traction if I were to just kind of say it in general, right? So,
Yeah.
talking to other people about it. So whether that be a group of some kind. I mean, there are sex addiction groups and these kinds of things, sure, but sharing it with a friend, shining light on it, right? Um, for me, a big part was finding out what was kind of going on underneath it, and so for me, I carried kind of a big father wound in my life. Parents divorced when I was young, like about 11 or 12 years old. Long
Same for
story
me
short,
as well, actually.
yeah,
Yeah, my
okay,
parents divorced. I was, yeah, about the same age, about 9, 10.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was the oldest in the household, so I kind of became a little bit more responsible than maybe I should have been at that age. Okay. So, it opens up this wound where you're being thrust into, because mom had to work multiple jobs to try to keep food on the table. And I have three younger siblings. Well, now I'm kind of the father figure. And I certainly wasn't ready for that, so identifying. So as I was going through this journey and had some help identifying, okay, what's going on underneath,
Mm.
we're identifying like this gap, right? Like,
Yeah.
what did I need in my life? What did I get, which left this gap? And I'm trying to fill it with this thing, you know? So when you start to hold that in your hand, you can start to see it and you can start to heal from it and go, okay, when I'm feeling these feelings, okay, now we start to talk about triggers. Let's bring in that up, right? Like for me, so without, and maybe, I don't know if it's yours as well, but I think about I don't know, like say 16, 17 years old, driving a car, something goes wrong, and it's like, I don't know how to fix anything. Like, no one's ever led me through any of this. My dad didn't show me how to change a tire, change it. Then you feel this feeling of like, oh, I'm inadequate, I'm not enough, or whatever, those kinds of things. And those can be like, that's an example of triggers, right? Like, oh, I need to go and soothe this pain somehow. And I've learned to do it over the years through hundreds, thousands of repetitions with pornography, right? That's how I escape. That's how I soothe myself. So, what are my needs? Identifying the gap, kind of those, that's important too on the journey. And I think now, as I'm 15 years later, what I think guys like, and I say that kind of in my promotional stuff for the program, for instance, is I think you need a plan.
Mm.
Uh, you need someone to help lead you on that plan, and you need community. Like you need to be with other men who are fighting the same enemy. Iron sharpens iron. Yeah, those are some things. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, you need I mean, you need a plan, you need to learn the enemy. Yeah. But I feel like for me, one of the advice I always say to people, I think what I was doing myself, I was trying to stay busy, to try to replace it with things that I enjoy the most, like I mean, you have to do everything that count. If you feel like your internet, you can just like you can call your internet provider as well to make sure like they block everything and you don't have to get a password.
Yeah,
Or it's hard right now because social media, you have it. I use Twitter, but trust me, Twitter is actually full of pornography.
yeah,
And the thing about Twitter is like accessible to everybody, even the kids, they can just go on Twitter. So all those things about being 18, it doesn't make any sense because they're gonna ask you inside, okay, are you 18? No. Of course you're gonna say I'm 18. There's no
yeah,
ID,
yeah.
there's nothing. People are very exposed, but you don't feel like, as a Christian, you don't feel like um, society that's what they want. They want the kids to be more exposed to sex and to pornography.
Yeah.
I think that's the goal because I don't think they're doing anything to kind of stop it. It's actually
No.
keep growing.
So yeah, there's no meaningful age verification at all, right? Like, are
Yeah.
you 18? Like, you're 15 years old, looking for porn. What are you gonna, Sure, I'm 18. Like,
Yeah, of course, you're
show me the
18.
goods, right? Show me the goods. Yeah, yeah, and it's sad. Yeah.
For the client that you have, because I know you have a lot of, people that you talk to.
Mm.
Why do you think today, because I know people when we talk about it right now, they don't see the other side, the outcome of the issue still into that. What do you think is it something that the impact, the negative impact of pornography, of being addicted to pornography and just staying
Sure.
there, living that life? What do you think is one of the
Yeah,
biggest impact?
yeah, yeah. So I would say like impacts on self would
On
be,
self, yes.
yeah,
Before we go
most
to like a spiritual side, but like just
sure.
like as a
Yeah,
person.
yeah. I see, again, speaking in generalities, like the things that I see and the things that is in the literature, lower self-confidence generally. Um, because why, think about, I don't want to be triggering, but if you think about pornography and what you're watching, uh, let's say people are, okay, let's say other males are selected based on certain attributes that only they might have, and it's very small percentage of the population would have, right? And so sometimes you're comparing yourself to that, and you go, oh my goodness, like, and it's all fake, right? It's all crap. It's like, oh, there's a porn scene 40 minutes long, so my lovemaking should be 40 minutes of it, and it's all, this isn't.
That's another
It's
thing
all,
as well. I think
yeah,
you build
yeah,
your self-confidence as well,
yeah,
self-esteem gonna go low because people record for like hours and you're gonna be there or in bed for maybe for like 20 minutes or half an hour. So
yeah,
you're gonna
yeah.
start feeling some type of way. Yeah.
Yeah, and like that's not me, and I don't look like that. So my certain parts don't look like that person's certain parts, and right, and so like, so self confidence low, like self esteem certainly. Um, Irritability is something that oftentimes she reports. So I work with a lot of, like I said, married Christian guys, so and they have kids, and they report like once they start to break free, like I'm so much more patient with my children and these kinds of things. And why? Because they have this, they've had this secret part of themselves, right? That's happening, and they know it internally. They're not sharing it, but they know, and they're subconsciously they become short-tempered, oftentimes irritable, these kinds of things. Connection with their wives. I mean, you think of the betrayal that is there. Hey, by the way, we've been married 7 years, and all these 7 years on the side in secret, I've been watching all these other women and things like, oh, right, and sometimes that's a deal breaker for people, and sometimes they can heal from that. How we see women, so single or married, doesn't matter. If you're watching pornography, like, think about how it shapes how we see women. So the pornographers, make no mistake, they know what they're doing. They will film scenes in certain ways where they will highlight body parts and certain angles and these kinds of things. So think of the hours and hours and hours of watching that stuff. And then you go out into the world, and then you see women, and it's like, hey, that's not like woman, creation of God, bless her beauty. It's there's nice breasts, or she's got nice legs or a nice butt. We start to objectify
Yeah,
and
yeah.
kind of,
I think that's
like,
that's the downside of it because you're gonna
yeah,
start, yeah. Yeah, every time you see women in your head, you can actually see them already naked. You're actually gonna
yeah,
sexualize women as well. I think that's the reason why society see women certain way and people become more aggressive into a woman as well. You feel like they should react the way you see them in a movie. I think that's the
yeah,
the danger
yeah.
part of it.
Yeah, and we're getting a lot of that these days too out in the literature, where young people are more violent in their sexual activity.
Hmm,
A lot of things that they're modeling from what they're seeing, because
hmm,
it just keeps getting, like, we talk about, you and I, let's say there was a magazine and things like this. Well,
hmm.
that's like now, if when we were exposed, it's like Tylenol, now it's like heroin. Like, it's become
Yeah,
so much different than what that
it's
was now,
yeah,
And so now people are seeing females being abused, smacked, choked, all these things. And then, oh, okay, this is how we're learning how to have, and then we go into an intimate situation, and this must be what you like. And this is how it's done. And right. There's a lot of that stuff coming out now too. It's so dangerous in so many ways. I go on and on. Sorry, forgive me.
but you think yeah, but pornography, but you feel like women don't talk about it too much. I think okay, we cannot talk about pornography
Yeah.
without talking about masturbation as well, because most of the time those things actually come along,
Yeah.
right? So if you see society today, okay, you as a Christian today, so what do you think is it like one of the things that kind of help you to stop like, watching porn as a Christian? Is it because the fear
Yeah.
of God? Is it because do you think there's any
Mm,
connection spiritually or when you watch those kind of things
yeah.
based
Yeah.
on, the word of God, the things that you know?
So I certainly think that there's a spiritual aspect. Yes. I think it's a few different things. Like, there's a biological aspect. So who do I want to be? Like, okay, so biologically, what I talk about is the physical brain, those kinds of things. Um, Maybe you've heard the term pornography induced erectile dysfunction. So
Okay.
oftentimes with guys, watching pornography, and you're right, paired with masturbation most of the time, there's neurochemical called dopamine released as we see this, and it's hyperstimulating. It's fake. It's hyperstimulating, right? And what happens is, like, I don't want to get too technical, but like the brain starts to downgrade the dopamine release. Okay. So based on the stuff that we're watching. So let's say we go to a pornographic scene and it's like, oh my goodness, this is the most exciting thing I've ever seen. Like, right. And then there's paired with masturbation. You come back again. Oh, this is such a good scene. Come back again. Well, eventually you'll return to it and you'll kind of go like, meh, okay, it's not that exciting anymore. I kind of need something else, right? And then you'll watch something, a different genre or different whatever it is, and then the dopamine's back, right? And when it feels like meh, it's like your brain is downgrading the release of the dopamine based on that particular stimulus. So I need something else. Oh, now we're back, baby, and it's exciting again, and this kind of repeats itself. So now imagine doing that a bunch of times, and then now I'm like with an actual person, like in real life, who's not fake like these movies we're watching, and maybe at first that's a little bit exciting because it's, especially if it's you're just married and it's your first time or whatever. But eventually your brain starts to think like, what is this? This isn't as exciting as the stuff we've been watching. And then your excitement level goes down, and then a lot of guys deal with erectile dysfunction. So just one of the things on a biological level, right? If you want to offer yourself well to your partner, you want to protect your brain. You want to protect your biology.
Mm.
Number two, psychology. So, we need to approach the narrative of what, how I fulfill my need as a sexual being, because the Lord has created us. That's a part of us, is sexual, right? And we're made for Eve. And this stuff is so insidious because it hijacks that natural way that we're made. It hops on the roads that are already built, and it takes it over, kind of thing. So psychologically, there's a narrative there that this is how I fulfill myself sexually, right? And so there's a battle there. So biological, psychological, and of course spiritual. The devil has a plan, like, if I can say from a Christian point of view, the devil has a plan here, right? He hates the family, right? And the best way to destroy the family is to come between husband and wife. And pornography is his sharpest sword, right? He wants to sever that relationship. And, guys, and he's winning, like he's doing really well. Like if I were to say, 52 billion views on, and that's just one of the websites. There's only 8 billion people in the world. And a lot of them are kids, and a lot of them don't have internet. So there's a biological, psychological, and spiritual piece to all of this, right? And that's why, I wish I could say, to your people watching, this is the silver bullet. Like, this is the thing that you need. It's a combination of a lot of different things, and that's what makes it so difficult for people. Or else it'd be really easy, right? It'd be like, oh, here, just do this one thing, and then you'd be good. Like you mentioned filters a while ago, like for instance, you can get internet filters or whatever. They're good, but not sufficient. Like it's a part of it, but it's not everything. Like you need way more than that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think you need to pray, and you need to know. I think you need to acknowledge the impact as well, because I think when you acknowledge the impact of something, that's when you're kind of trying to be careful about to
Yeah.
not doing some things as well. As I was saying, like
Yeah.
you can't really talk about pornography without talking about masturbation as well. But you don't feel like, because most of the time when we watch porn, of course, people gonna masturbate because that's why you release, those pleasure. But in the society that we see today, we are talking about sex toys. It's
Yeah.
something is actually is crazy, because I'm talking as a Christian. I know some people gonna say it's just there to kind of encourage people to, for this desire. But at the same time, it's like giving you like it's actually a toy. That's what they call a toy anyway. You have a toy where you can actually masturbate where you are, whatever you are. And this is just part. I feel like when you're trying to look at the bigger picture, this is just part of the program, the program. Because if you're gonna use a sex toy, it's not made for you to just use it with your partner. It's made for you to use it on your own when you feel like you're horny, or if you're not even horny, if you want to watch something, you use it just to kind of like have both at the same time. So what is your opinion of the whole thing? Because this is the where the generation we're going. This is something
Yeah.
that they're actually teaching to the kids as well. This is something like is actually normal to our society. You see grown people with that in a bag, or yeah. What is your thought on that?
Yeah. So when I think of, like, if I understand your question, you're asking me about toys, right? Like
Yeah.
toys to help you masturbate in a
Do
different
you
way.
think is it
Yeah.
encouraging like the whole
Yeah.
pornography agenda,
Yeah.
if I can put it that way, as we know, like there's a
Totally.
lot of you. Do you think is
Yeah.
it like part of the agenda?
It's a huge part of the problem. Huge part of the problem, because if you think about, because what we're really saying there is, like, how do we maximize our masturbation experience?
Oh yeah,
Okay,
that's
that's
that's the
like the
right word
question,
actually.
right? It's like, oh, so if I'm maximizing my masturbation experience, that's going to make it even more damaging to me, right? Because
Mm,
what I want is to be aligned and go toward my partner. Like, Eve, we're made for Eve. We're not made for rubber dolls or whatever, right? Or
mm,
things that vibrate and these kinds of things, right? So anything that enhances masturbation, like, absolutely, like, that's taking us in the wrong direction. Certainly. Yeah. So I would say that that's not a great idea for people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because I think people gonna start trying to use an excuse us. You know what? You can actually still use it as long as you with your partner. Just like, yeah, but then again, the person gonna be attached to something is not physical. You're still
yeah,
gonna be detached. It's the same thing as watching something and then getting excited. Even me,
yeah,
I used to like watch it just to, because the way society is saying, people say like you have to watch it trying to spice a little bit with your partner. But the thing is, if you guys are already have that connection, you don't need
yeah,
that. Back in the day when people used to have no TV, no electricity in Jesus' time or whatever, like years, ancestor time, there was nothing. But how was they able to kind of enjoy sex and everything?
yeah.
So yeah.
And that's what makes it like that's what sex is supposed to be with a person, right?
Mm.
And it's supposed to be enjoyable, right? And these hyper stimulating things, like they make them and they sell them because they're hyper stimulating on our biology. So we have sensitive areas, and if there's things vibrating on those sensitive areas, ooh, that's very good. My partner doesn't vibrate, right? Like
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I'm becoming habituated to this thing. I want to become habituated to this thing because it's so much
But
more than just the vibration on my private. It's connection. It's what we're made for. Yeah,
I think when you talk about sexual dysfunction as well, I think like even men they start getting insecure as well by all those vibration machine because you cannot function like a machine if the woman is actually used to to enjoy sex with like a toy that is vibrating. You as a person, as a man, there's only so much you can actually do, but it doesn't mean like what you're doing is bad or is not
yeah,
enough. It's actually enough, but it's just like you are not a machine, you are a person. And
yeah,
sometimes we try to compare ourselves to a machine. That's the reason why sometimes a lot of people start getting frustrated and then men
yeah,
start using those things just to try to like please the woman as well.
yeah. And if we were to compare, a toy to somebody who I'm in love with and who I'm connected with, there's no comparison. There's so much
There's
more
no
to it.
feelings.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
right.
think the whole thing is they want to destroy the feeling. They want to put the feeling
Yeah,
aside because they don't want to attach the feeling with sexual, no,
yeah,
with sex actually. So they want to remove the feelings because the feeling is when, two people together. But if you remove the feeling, simply that's why you see a lot of people today, they actually even prefer to live on their own. They say, I don't need no man in my life because I have my toys, I live with my cat. When she feel like she
yeah,
needs sex, she just grab a toy, do what she have to do, and then carry with her life. As you mentioned earlier, is actually the devil goal is to kind of like destroy the family. I'm glad that you're actually going back to that because when I made this episode, I was just wanted to talk about it. It's just like roughly in general, but I didn't know you was a Christian, and I'm a Christian myself as well. And one of my goals today is actually to kind of like be as clear as possible against the agenda of this world, the way things are going on, especially for the kids. The only reason why I talk about this is more because of the kids, because us as adults, we struggle with that, but our kids gonna actually gonna suffer most
yeah,
because they live in a generation where everything is sexualized, like
yeah.
everything. TikTok,
And
Instagram.
that's coming out there too. Where like, they're talking about kids now, and they're kids, like as in like teens or whatever. They're engaging in oral sex before they're kissing. Like, what's going on? And this is this
Wow.
is like pretty common now, and I hate to say it. And why? It's because things have been. So I think that yes, pornography definitely has an
This is
impact.
actually crazy though.
Yeah, it's nuts. And because so many guys, like, it's so normalized now, like, oh yeah, guys use porn. Like, if any women are listening to this, don't lower your standards to that. Like, don't say, oh well, I guess I'm gonna have to settle for somebody who's using this stuff. And I think that as a society, that's kind of happening a little bit too much, especially young people, right? Like, who would have thought? When I think of when I was a kid, that's not, certainly you'd be kissing before anything else, right?
Hmm.
And here they are now, and so, like, if for the women watching this, if there are, I think it's more geared toward men maybe, but that's okay. The women, call him to greatness because it can be done. It can be
Sorry, I
done.
have a sound problem when you say. Can you say that again when you just say that, please?
Sure.
I made to by
Yeah, I was
mistake,
just,
yeah.
to the women watching, I was gonna say, don't lower your standards.
Mm,
Call your guy to greatness. Say, listen, I don't feel good about this, about what you're doing. Um, because who would? Oh yeah, I love when my man goes and watches other girl. Like, because then okay, let's go to the female side, the partner side. There's wounding in all sorts of different ways and to different degrees based on personality type and history. Fine, but some very common things are comparison piece. Like, oh, I don't look like those girls, right, on the internet. Because why? Because the internet had, particular girl, and then once you're don't look like that, well, there's new girls, or there's like this conveyor belt thing, and it's fake. Like, of course you don't look like we're not meant to try to do that. But there's a wound there now. Like, think of it. You're making love with your guy who watches pornography, and you think like, what is he thinking about right now? Like, what is he? Like, is he thinking like, we better turn the lights off because I don't look like what you've been watching. And of course you don't. You're not supposed to. So for the women out there, call your guys up, man. Call your guys up to greatness. Get them some, like, encourage them to reach out for some help. Encourage them to do what must be done. You are worth fighting for. That's what I like, your
Because I
heart.
think like it's gonna come with to addiction. You're gonna be addicted to porn. You're gonna
Yeah,
be addicted to masturbation as well. This is like two things is linked. Is like it's hard to kind of like give up to actually both as well.
yeah,
So I know we spoke about it, but as a father today, I know you are a father. I know this is one of the most challenging things because I feel like I have kids as well, but the problem I feel like when I grow up, my father, my mom, I didn't really grow up with my father, so and my mother, she never really sit down with me and
yeah,
tell me about sex in a way of being very open and direct about it. Just when I'm start getting a bit 15, 16, she's more like, oh, because I grew up like in a Christian family. She's more like, you have to be careful, girls are not good. You need to go to school when you're gonna grow up. You know that line, right? When you're
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
grow up, you're gonna find somebody, all those girls, you're gonna have your own family. Don't do like those people. But they never really go into the details. The fact I was already a young Christian, I didn't really need too much explanation. I already knew like this was bad, even though my friend have girlfriend or whatever.
yeah,
But today the time is different. Even when I was going to school, the teacher didn't tell me about sex or anything bizarre. I wasn't seeing anything somewhere. On TV, when people kiss, I used to turn my head. Now it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
normal.
No, no, yeah,
But what do you think parents should actually
yeah,
react
yeah.
with kids? Do you think
Sure.
it's really important to bring this conversation the same way as we bring the conversation about like racism, like um gang bang, all those things,
Yep,
especially when you have
yep,
boys, you have to tell them about the life on the street, just for them
yeah,
to know and to be ready. So
yeah.
do you think it's something that we should bring to the kids as well? Or if we should
100%.
just act
Yeah.
like it doesn't exist?
Yeah, 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 yeah. 100%. Like, those conversations need to take place. And bouncing off of what I said earlier around the average age of exposure being between 8 and 11,
Mm,
parents are waiting. Like, the parents who actually are having the talks are oftentimes waiting too long, right? Like, 12 years old is too late. That's hard to say. Do you know what I mean? Like, because how do you talk to an 8-year-old about things? And so the number one thing that you can do as a parent. So firstly, yes, filtering at home is good. Like, have an internet filter just as a way to go. Like, Covenant Eyes is the one that I suggest to people. And you can block things from coming in, all those kinds of things. But it's not everything, because you might have a filter, but then they go down the street and little Johnny has a phone and he doesn't have a filter. They're going to be exposed anyways. It's not a matter of if. That's what I want people to know now. It's not a matter of, is my child going to be exposed? The answer is yes. It's not even up for debate. They will be. It's not if, it's when. So we need to start those conversations early. There's a good book out there, there's a resource called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, which is a way for you to approach young people, like, think 8 years old and maybe even a little. Listen, you might see some things, and like, here, what should our communication look like around that? Hey, if you see something in, because just like you described it, it was jarring, traumatizing, whatever. Like, if you see something, like, we need to have a communication line open. There's stuff in there around, encouraging your child to avert their eyes immediately. Why? So that the brain doesn't get hit with the stuff, right? So the book is called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. I forget, darn it, the author, but very good. but the conversations need to happen earlier than what parents think. That's what I feel. Anyways, like like 8 years old, you should be. We're having talks with our kids
Yeah,
around
I
it.
think I
Yeah,
think I understand exactly what you mean. It's just because like as a parent, I think parents actually feel, oh, you know what, that's my baby. Because in your head, it's like you see him as, of course, the kids, but society doesn't care. Society want to destroy your kids. That's what you need to
yeah,
remember. Like
yeah,
society, like the system, the goal is to destroy a family, to destroy your kids, to sexualize people.
yeah,
So if we, as much as we want to treat our kids as kids, if we love them, we have to tell them the truth because out there is a mess. They're gonna
yeah,
learn about it in school, as you say. They're gonna have a friend that actually have it on their phone. They're gonna be exposed. But it's very hard to have those kind of conversation with the kids. Even with my son, I remember the other day, I call him and I just start talking to him about things in school about bullying. Bullying is easier to talk about it. That's not a big issue. In our time when I was younger, that was hard conversation for the parent to talk about it. But I was talking to him about the whole like gender things going on because I didn't want him to get jealous. And no, not jealous,
mm,
I know what I'm talking about. I didn't want him to get confused. I
confused.
was
Yeah,
talking to him about all this gender stuff. But because I'm a Christian,
yeah,
I spoke to him about it, me as a Christian, and for we things that we stand for. And I had to tell him, even when you watch things on TV, it's not because people say something on TV, it doesn't mean like it's true. It's not because
yeah,
your teacher says something, that means it's true. You have to learn how to do your own research and stand for things that you believe. It was a
yeah,
very hard conversation,
yeah,
but I had to have it.
yeah.
Have to have it because we
Yeah.
live in a time
Because
where you have to do that.
if you don't, someone else will,
Yeah,
right?
exactly,
So
exactly.
you've got to get in the arena. You've got to step into that fight and get in there. And the conversations shouldn't just be one time. So like when we say like 8 years old, the conversation with my 8 year old daughter looks different than my conversation with my 10 year old daughter. You know what
Mm,
I mean? We're going to continue to talk about it, but it just might be a little more mature at 10, and then when we're 13, there's going to be a different conversation. It's probably going to sound different again. So you know,
it's
more than
hard
just
though.
one
It's, it's,
time.
it's,
Yeah,
it's
it's
it's really
hard. Oh,
hard.
but let's normalize it. Let's say, hey, and that's in that, I think in the Good Pictures, Bad Pictures book, it'll talk about ways to approach young
I
people
think
and
I
things.
think
You're
you
going
need
to,
to let me know about this
yeah,
book. I should buy it actually.
yeah.
Yeah.
Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, it's called. Yeah, it's very good. It's very good.
So yeah, but so what you were saying, I think 12 is too late. You think that we should actually bring those kind of conversation to the kids to
Yeah,
prepare them about. I think you just have to words. You have to use things in the right way because sometimes they're curious. You might actually expose them in something that they actually haven't even tried or haven't even seen.
right.
So you just gotta use the right words today.
And the way I'll like explain to my daughters is like this: there are certain things out there that you don't want to see because it'll hurt your brain. We start kind of there. And like listen, this includes anything people without clothes. 8 year old sounds like if you see anything with people with kind of no clothes. We talk about modesty in our family. We have our family morals and our values that we're we there's consistent conversations going on. But like pictures of people without clothes, like those are out there, and like you want to avoid that stuff because it'll hurt your brain, right? And just like you were saying, the same thing, like young people
Mm,
exposed to this kind of stuff will hurt their brain, like literally. So we
mm,
need to, if you see that, and that's in that book that I'm mentioning, like
mm.
you gotta move, you gotta get away from it right away.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's really important for kids to know like you are aware of that as well. Because most of the time you're gonna see kids, let's say, you know, the whole drug things, like people out there smoking. I even say to my son, look, sometime you're gonna see your friend actually telling you like, okay, you wanna try this, you wanna get high.
yeah,
And he's like, I'm like, have you ever seen your friend smoke? He's like, no, but I heard of it. I'm like, yes, but because they need to know like you know about it. Because sometimes the kids
yeah,
do things, they feel like, oh, that is too old. That doesn't know about this. Like we don't talk
yeah.
about it, doesn't know. But when you actually let them know like you actually advance, I think they're gonna respect you more. And
Amen.
maybe they're gonna trust you more in terms of like having a conversation because be like, oh, you know what? Daddy told me about this years ago before I even get into this.
Yeah,
Oh my God, I cannot get out of it. But I know
yeah,
you know about it because you already told me about it. But if you
yeah,
don't start a conversation, You wait until they come and have those conversations with you because as much as it's hard for us to have those conversations with them, we are the father, but for them to have those conversations with us is even 10 times harder.
Yeah,
So,
that's it. I want to, in developing that consistently, I
mm,
am the source of information if you have questions, and this is okay. You
mm,
can ask me hard things, and you can tell me that maybe if you did see something or whatever, and I'm not gonna, how I react is important.
mm.
Like, what do you mean you saw that? And if I freak out, they're gonna, oh, I'm not telling him again. Like, bleh, right? So it's like,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah,
like
yeah,
let's have
yeah,
open,
yeah.
let's be honest with each other, and let's
Mm,
react well. And then, if your kid ever does come to you and says, hey, I got to tell you, there's this thing weighing on me, and I've been watching this stuff. Like in that moment matters so much what you do, right? Because
yeah, I think based on what you're telling me now is different. I think before, if I see it watching that, I'll be more like, oh my God, what are you doing? Why are you watching this kind of thing? Turn like, but as you say, if you act this way, they're gonna be like, oh my God, oh he's crazy. Like, okay, you know
I'm not
what? I'm not
telling
gonna
him
tell me
anything.
anything.
Yeah,
But if you be
exactly.
like, wow, I mean, you show him like you are shocked first of all, and you call him and say, listen, come here, I'm gonna talk to you. You explain things, you say the bad thing, you say when I used to be young, this is the problem, and he understand, like you make him realize like you understand his struggle and you are not happy about what he's doing, but you kind of gonna help him to get out of it.
Yeah, that's it.
So he can
Yeah,
actually trust you. But it's
like I'm with you. We're on the same team, right? That's
yeah.
the whole, like I tell my daughters that all the time. We're on the same team. Petco. You know what I mean? Like if you
Mm,
need something, we've got each other's backs. Like we can. So, if you're struggling and you want some help out of it, check me out at
mm,
www.renewedhopecoaching.com. My program is right now specifically married Christian men. So Christian men who are either married or in committed relationships. We're currently developing another program for people who are single, and because part of the program that I run, there's groups and things like that. So, if it's guys who are not single, then we're able to share, kind of share in a different way, and then we'll do the same thing for single people. So, if you visit my website, if you're in a committed relationship and you're a Christian guy and you want help, you know, definitely reach out. All the instructions will be there on the site. And if you're a single person struggling, still go to the site, and it'll ask for an email address and get on that list, because there will be some information coming out soon around how we might be able to help you break free.
correct. And again, it was very, really nice to have you today. I really appreciate. I think this conversation was really good. I'm happy that we actually spoke about it, but we actually put God first as well because I think like it's one of
Amen.
those battles where God is actually the only person who really can actually save you from this addiction. No
Yeah,
matter how smart
yeah,
you are, you need
yeah.
God to kind of like save you from that. I'm not gonna take your time too much, and again, thank you.
That's good.
And I'm gonna make sure we're gonna have another episode. We're gonna focus more on the kids and your
Sure,
experience
I'm in.
with life and everything. All right.
I'd love to come back if you have me. I love talking about this stuff, and if you
Yeah,
know if
hopefully
if if,
everything
if
gonna be
we can
set up
help some
properly.
people, let's do it. Yeah,
Yes, yes. I think a lot of people have this problem, and a lot of family have this problem, but people don't want to talk about it. And
yeah,
most church don't want to talk about it as well.
yeah,
And that's the problem as a Christian that we have. We need to adapt to today's society. All right,
yeah.
reality, I mean. All right.
Yes.
Thank you again to having you, and yeah, God bless you and take care of your family as well. All right.
God bless you. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
having me and giving me the opportunity.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay, you
Bye.
too. Bye.